Hi everybody, I'm Chris. We're going to talk about building Nostr apps. If you saw or were at the talk I gave 4-ish months ago about building a Lightning wallet with React Native, in some sense this will be a part 2 to that. We're going to do like a 60 to 90 second overview of the main things that we covered there in terms of why React Native, why Expo. But today we're actually going to be building apps the way that an actual developer would, and we're going to start by kind of creating an app in the same way that I have done in creating an Expo app from scratch, connecting it to Nostr and learning all about all that good stuff. So topics we'll go over briefly. What is Nostr? Why Nostr matters? A brief tour of the Nostr ecosystem. What's new with Nostr? Basics of building apps. Why I think it makes sense to use React Native and Expo, particularly if you're new to mobile app development. We're going to set up a Nostr app using Expo from scratch. I'll give you a tour of the code base of the main project I'm working on now called Arc, which is a Nostr-based cross-platform client for chat and feeds. And I'm going to announce some bounties for people who want to modify that code base. So we'll give you the coding section will be split between getting set up from scratch, as well as kind of giving you a tour of an app that's pretty far along, close to production ready. I also want to touch on ChatGPT and kind of give some examples about how ChatGPT can help you code faster. For example, dropping pieces of the Nostr protocol spec into ChatGPT can help you create code and remove a lot of the guesswork. And I'll show you kind of the workflow that I do. So what the hell is Nostr? It's an abbreviation. It stands for Notes and Other Stuff Transmitted by Relays. And for the rest of this, I'm just going to kind of pop between some slides. As a developer, you'll need to kind of get good at bouncing between different information sources, GitHub, Telegram, now Nostr, as more conversation is moving to the Nostr protocol itself. And so as we go through the workshop today, you'll see me just kind of bouncing around, and there'll be some questions that you guys have, and we're just going to kind of show you how a developer kind of surfs around. The main repository of the Nostr spec and the best kind of explanation for it is in the Nostr protocol GitHub. This has, I think, 2 repos. One is kind of just the introduction, and one are the nips. We'll get to the nips shortly. But the about here is called a truly censorship-resistant alternative to Twitter that has a chance of working. And one of the conversations in the Nostr Telegram group in the past days was, should we update that to reflect that this is not just an alternative to Twitter? This is the potential kind of substrate for all sorts of Bitcoin and Lightning adjacent decentralized applications using this Nostr as a protocol. But that's kind of, I guess, keeping it there for now, under promise, over deliver type thing. But it's described as the simplest open protocol that is able to create a censorship-resistant global social network once and for all. It doesn't rely on any trusted central server, hence it is resilient. It is based on cryptographic keys and signatures, so it is tamper-proof. It does not rely on P2P techniques, therefore it works. This is kind of just the super basic explanation of it, which I'll also read. This is kind of the mental model that's important to cement in your head. Everybody runs a client. It could be a native client, a web client, etc. To publish something, you write a post, sign it with your key, and send it to multiple relays, which are servers hosted by someone else or yourself. To get updates from other people, you ask multiple relays if they know anything about these other people. Anyone can run a relay. A relay is very simple and dumb. It does nothing besides accepting posts from some people and forwarding to others. Relays don't have to be trusted. Signatures are verified on the client side. And then it's got some comparisons here between this and Twitter, Mastodon. A bunch of the people in the kind of Twitter saga recently have been like making a big deal about moving to Mastodon, realizing Mastodon sucks, like figuring out what could be some potential alternatives. Some pretty good comparisons between Nostr and some of these other protocols. So you can read that. Other repo in here has the actual kind of like the protocol spec. Each piece of functionality or a piece of the specification is written in a NIP. Nostr implementation possibilities, somewhat similar to BIPs. The core one is NIP1, basic protocol flow description. This NIP defines the basic protocol. Each user has a key pair. Signatures, public key, and encodings are done according to the Schnorr signatures. The only object type that exists is the event, which has the following format on the wire. Okay, so if we go back here, let's just take a look at what all of the NIPs are. And so one cool thing is that this is a very open process where people can and do submit new NIPs as needed. One of the most exciting ones recently has been this NIP 26 for delegated event signing. This defines how events can be delegated so that they can be signed by other key pairs. So just to give one example of some of the cool stuff that's been happening lately, and to give the kind of high level of why the explosion in popularity recently, about 3 weeks ago or so, Jack Dorsey, founder of Twitter, put out a blog post saying that he was looking to fund some alternative social platforms or protocols. And Nostr came to his attention and ended up putting in $250K grant to Fiat-Joff, the founder of this protocol. He gave half of that for disbursement to William from Damas. So there's like a whole kind of grant process. So Nostr has a little bit of funding. And then like right after that kind of initial burst of activity, Twitter put out this thing saying that they're banning people from sharing their account information for a variety of services, one of which was Nostr. And so a whole bunch of people were like, well, what the hell is Nostr if Elon's trying to ban it? They backtracked on that pretty quickly. But as part of this kind of explosion in popularity, one of the things that I'll recommend you do to get connected to the Nostr community, the easiest thing to do is to join the Nostr Telegram group. This is linked from the Nostr introduction document I was just reading. This went from like 1,000 members to 4,500 in the last 3 weeks. But there's all sorts of really great things that get posted in here. And one of the most exciting ones, just as an example of what has been happening lately, this was posted yesterday. I'll just read this. Yo, having to enter your Nostr private key on each website or random app you visit sucks. Me and two other folks worked on this draft NIP to propose Nostr Connect, a protocol for Nostr apps to connect with remote signing devices such as mobile phones. Looking forward to hear your feedback. So this is something that like a year ago or 6 months ago, we were talking in the Nostr channel, like, man, it would be cool if there was a dedicated identity wallet mobile app that could enable people to not have to put their private key into different places. And then, voila, yesterday, someone, puts this beautiful spec demo apps with this pretty elegant solution that combines NIP4 for the kind of encrypted DMs, combining that with this new NIP, delegated event signing to enable this whole other use case. And people will kind of go back and forth and debate it and tweak it. But really cool that these kinds of like major kind of security and UX innovations are coming up at a rapid pace. There are some of these things have kind of become super like well adopted. Like if you're familiar with the Damas app, which is currently the most popular Nostr client, you can see that like some of them repost, for example. This one, for example, this is a NIP that was authored by William Kazarin, who is the main developer behind Damas. And this was just something that he thought was necessary and made sense for his app, as he's really kind of leaning into the Twitter clone replacement for reposts. And so he wrote this spec, and this got adopted in part because he implemented the spec in Damas, and then people have kind of seen that was needed and worked well with the other NIPs, and so that got adopted. I've been interested in chat as a use case, and I've been curious to see if Nostr could apply toward chat just as it applies towards Twitter. And so after a bunch of experimentation, I wrote this NIP for public chat, got feedback and some co-authorship from Fiat-Joff and William and the author of the Nostr TypeScript relay, and proposed this whole thing, defining new event kinds for public chat channels, channel messages, and basic client-side moderation. reserving event kinds for channel creation, basic chat type things. I had done I did like a little initial prototype client, and then Super, who people had mentioned earlier, he took that and ran with it and created this Nostr client called Enigma, aiming to be sort of a Telegram clone. And this was probably the main chat client for a long time. Recently, there's been some, with the recent crush of activity, there's been some security vulnerabilities that became apparent with this. But one cool thing about this is that, Super's made a bunch of really great kind of experimentations with Enigma that I am now, as I'm kind of revisiting, creating a chat client in React Native, I'm able to go in and take the pieces of code that I like from his code base and adapt it into Arc. Okay, any questions on NIPs, comments, anything else anyone thinks is cool and worth mentioning here?
So, your proposal also said NIP. Is that like what you just said for public chat?
Mm-hmm.
And then
delegation is 26.
Oh, 26. Okay. Have you heard of, what do you think of NIP 38?
That's the group chat one. I've been following that pretty closely because I really, really, really want to use that in Arc, but encrypted group chat is really hard, and I have been following it closely to know if what's being proposed satisfies. I don't know. My approach is to start with just focusing on NIP 28 for kind of public stuff, and then do NIP 4, and then hopefully in a couple weeks there's more movement on NIP 38. And just so people can, if you want to see what are the things that are being in development, let's see if we can find NIP 38 here. I'm guessing it's a PR, or maybe we can search for it.
It's I don't know how to say his name.
Vishal?
Vishal, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's on his repo.
Oh, well, let's see if we can find it. Yeah, Vishal runs Nostr console, one of the other Nostr clients also that has pretty full integration of NIP 28. And I don't know, it's probably around there somewhere. If you search in the Telegram group, you could probably find it. But there's a whole spec about people talking about encrypted private chats for groups, which is kind of a hard problem to solve. Yeah?
So NIP 5 is something that a lot of people are talking about, a lot of people are integrating. What is that specifically, Christopher, as far as the NIP 5?
Let's go read it. And it's cool. I actually want to try something. One of the things that I have started to use ChatGPT for is really quickly getting a high-level view of things. So watch this. Let's take NIP 5. Now, it's not going to let me get all of this, probably, but let's try going down to, well, actually, let's just give it a try. Summarize this in 5 sentences or less.
Wow.
It's like a second brain. Sometimes it'll say too long. Okay. All right, everybody, just pretend I'm saying this. NIP 5 is a method for mapping Nostr keys to DNS-based internet identifiers, email-like addresses. When a client sees an event of kind 0, set metadata with the key NIP 5, it splits the identifier into local part and domain and sends a GET request to the blah, blah, blah. The response should be a JSON. Okay, I'm going to have it rephrase this without the tech jargon. So there's. All right. Rephrase.
Oh, wait, you got it within
that.
5 really long. Actually, that's not bad.
Like you are talking to a 8-year-old. NIP 5 is a way to link internet addresses like emails to special keys called Nostr keys. When a client sees a special message called a set metadata event with a NIP 5 key, it looks at the internet. This is still a little, I don't know, it must be a really smart 8-year-old. Okay.
That's much better, though.
Yeah, that's pretty good. One thing you have to watch out for is sometimes ChatGPT will just straight up lie. It'll say something that sounds really plausible, but it's not. And so you can't take this 100% grain of, take it with a grain of salt. but it's good to help kind of do 80 to 90% of your thinking for you on certain things. So let's just stick with this conversation for real quick. Let's just say I am going to do a live coding demo during this workshop, and I want to demonstrate how to integrate NIP5 into a React Native Expo app. Is that relevant to show in the context of a mobile app, or is it too heavily focused on backend? How would you include this in a demo? Let's see what it says. It is possible to integrate NIP5 into a React Native Expo app, but it would likely be more focused on the back end rather than the front end of the app. To include NIP5 in a demo, you could demonstrate how to make the necessary GET requests to the well-known URL and how to parse the response to extract the necessary information. You could also show how to use this information to link internet addresses to Nostr keys in the app. It may be helpful to provide a brief overview of NIP5 and its purpose before diving into the implementation details. And if I really wanted to go forward with this, I could be like, tell me what to say, tell me what to do. Like, it's pretty cool. Okay, so on the subject of NIP5, for most people, just from getting familiar with it from a end user consumer who doesn't want to have to think about the technology details, NostrPlebs.com, Semisol partnered with, so one of the longtime Nostr developers, Semisol, partnered with Derek Ross to put this little service up where you can very easily get a NIP5 address. You pay them, I guess, a few thousand sats, and you can get your name at NostrPlebs.com. And I was really happy to see this because this is like the first example of someone setting up like a paid service on Nostr that like a whole bunch of people have used. So we're starting to see some like more commercial activity, but NIP5 is one example of a NIP. Let's see. Any questions that anyone has about the Nostr protocol thus far?
I have a question, but are you going to keep going into NIP5?
Probably not, but you want to say anything else about it?
Yeah. I think one thing that's really cool is that if you go to cache.app and the endpoint of Dorsey, that's where you put his key.
Yep.
So I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, Jack Dorsey, who is a heavy user of Nostr, particularly Damas. His like NIP5 is at Cache App, so they set up Cache App to have that little Nostr endpoint. Okay. He's on the cutting edge. All right, so so briefly, let's just kind of get into app building 101 stuff. If you want to get more of a broad-based introduction to React Native, the talk I gave last time, which I think is on the PlebLab YouTube channel, the important stuff that I went over there that I'll touch on briefly for now is React Native matters because it's a way to create apps that can target multiple types of devices like Android and iOS and web and desktop and Windows and like Mac TV or OS TV or whatever, with one code base with very minimal changes that you need to make between targeting platforms. The app that I'm writing currently for Arc, targeting Android, iOS, and web. The Android and iOS share about 100% of the code, 99%, and then mobile and web share about 90% of the code, with a few like navigation-specific changes on web and a couple libraries. We'll go through that in a bit more detail later when I give you a tour of that code base. So React Native is awesome. A bunch of React Native, a bunch of Bitcoin Lightning apps are written in React Native, like Blixt, Blue Wallet, and Galoy as 3 examples. If you're learning React Native these days, my strong recommendation, and a number of people are kind of increasingly converging on Expo as the layer that you want to kind of start with. It's just kind of like a layer of abstractions on top of React Native that make things super easy. One one tweet I saw recently was like, if you're not using Expo as a React Native developer, you're losing out on just tremendous like developer experience and productivity gains, and I agree with that. And so when I was deciding, after everything kind of started taking off the last few weeks, and I decided to circle back and do my own Nostr client, I considered working with, there's another React Native client that someone's working on, KoalaSat, has got this client called Nostros, and it's cool that it's in React Native, but it's not Expo, and I specifically want to do Expo, and I think that I'm trying to focus on the chat first, and they're not, but it is cool to be able to kind of go in and look at various of the code that they use here. So one of the things, in a second we're going to step through and kind of create a Nostr app from scratch, but my general recommendation is that if you are wanting to create a Nostr client, make use of what's already out there. Pretty much every single client that people are using, I think every single one, is currently open source. And this is a big difference between the Nostr ecosystem and Keat, for example. People got excited about, oh, Keat, and it uses this sort of Bitcoin adjacent stuff, but Keat is not open source. And they promised in September that they would be open sourcing their code by the end of the year. And they open sourced all of their underlying libraries, but not their app code. So if you're making big promises to people that your app has security guarantees X, Y, and Z, but you don't let people inspect the code, that's like, to me, that's a red flag. Nostr, completely the other way around. Almost everything is open source. And the license is what matters. Apache, pretty permissive. As I decided to open source Arc from the beginning, I went with AGPL3, which means basically that other people can use the code how they want, but if they make any modifications to it, those also have to be made public. That's just what I thought made sense for that. I just want to show you one cool thing that I was able to do yesterday as I was kind of like learning from the Nostros code base, like how do they do things? So one of the questions that I had yesterday, and this would be like slightly more advanced, but then we'll go back to the basics. But I just want to show you while we've still got the ChatGPT open. One of the questions that I had as I'm thinking about, so one of the issues is if you're writing a Nostr client and every time you open the app, you're fetching messages from relays, that can be potentially wasteful or like additionally straining on the relays if every single time you're pulling down every message that you want, as well as it takes time for the messages to kind of cycle in. So one of the things that like more mature apps want to solve for is how do we keep caches of messages on the device and load from the cache before we go and you supplement that with what messages that we don't have from a relay. I saw that, so I'm like, okay, how are other apps solving this? Well, I saw that Nostros uses SQLite, which is a very lightweight, SQL, SQL database type. A number of the relays that people run also use SQLite. And I did not know that you can use SQLite database in the context of React Native via. So one of the advantages to React Native is that even though the bulk of your code is in JavaScript, TypeScript, the kinds of things that you might be familiar with if you have a background in web development, like how I started, you can write your app code in JavaScript, but you have the flexibility if you want to of writing kind of native code. There's some libraries, crypto libraries that work faster if you use the native versions of it. So you can go put Android device specific code in here, and you can put iOS device specific code in here. Generally, I try to avoid that. If there's a way to put that code into a simpler, more JavaScript way, then I will. So one thing that I noted just about kind of a potential improvement to make over this code base, I saw that they're using SQLite in Java. I don't want to touch any Java code. But as I was looking at the, if you remember if you were here for the last time, we kind of went down the APIs of this, of Expo, and basically everything here is a just like a little module. I gave the example of if you're trying to build a mobile app that ties Lightning SAT micropayments to how many steps that you do. For example, you would want to use the accelerometer that can tell your steps, and you would just very easily install the package like that, and then it kind of explains how to use it. So basically, anything that's in this list is a package that's maintained by Expo and more or less guaranteed to be super easy to integrate and play well with everything else in the Expo ecosystem. If you're not using Expo, yes, you may have access to like the wider world of React Native packages, but if you're trying to work with 20 different packages from 20 different developers that may have conflicting versions or their packages clash, it just makes things a lot easier to know that the Expo team has like made sure that all of these packages work really well together. And so as I was looking down to see if there was anything in Expo that could help solve this. Oh, guess what? Expo has a SQLite package. The downside is that it doesn't work on web because I'm generally trying to do Android and iOS and web at the same time. But I said, this probably makes sense, at least for now, to put in on the mobile app. And so this was what I was doing yesterday, was getting SQLite added to Arc. I don't have it pushed to the main branch, but it's in the alpha branch if anyone wants to look at the exact code that I did. But I spent the most of the day in conversation with ChatGPT. And I think I even have the conversation here. Let me just pull it up. So basically, one thing that ChatGPT is really good at is converting code from one language to another. And so, for example, in the Nostr codebase, they have this definition of an event. So like Nostr specific class definitions for event, relay, WebSocket. And let's see if I can scroll down here. So for example, and you don't have to like understand the full syntax here, but the idea is that as an event comes in, remember how we said that the relevant piece of data for Nostr is an event. It creates a class for all these events, so it's easy to save. So there you've got your the basic properties are the timestamp it was created at, what the content of the event is, the ID, the kind that tells you if it's a channel or a channel message or a post or a reaction, the pub key of the user that sent it, the signature that verifies that it was them that sent it, and any tags that are on it. And then it's got methods for saving it to the database, and this will call if it's a kind 0 for user meta, then there's a function that crafts the SQLite query and will dump it into there. Now, the advantage to this all being open is that this app, has some basic functionality working, such that I don't need to, rethink what the database table structure should be. I can use largely the same table structure that they have, but the Java implementation of SQLite is completely different than the SQLite made available through React Native. Let's see if this is loading. You can see kind of the prompts that I start with here. You are my pair programmer. We are building a cross-platform chat app using React Native, Expo, Tamagui/Solito, styled components, Zustin, and Nostr. One of the limitations of ChatGPT is that its data set only goes up through 2021. And so Tamagui is a newer library for cross-platform UI components, but it's built on Solito. That's why I kind of put /Solito. So it probably will know what Solito is. It might not know what Tamagui is, but it does a pretty good job. Blah, blah, blah. Today we are adding Zustin persist to our stores, so we don't refetch chat messages we already have in store. So I was experimenting with this before turning to SQLite. Probably going to use Zustin persist on the web. Let's see if I can find the SQLite. Here we go. SQLite functions for chat app. I don't know why this is lagging. Come on. OK. So I gave it that introduction, and then I said, we need to store and retrieve messages on device, so we don't need to fetch them from the server every time. For web, we will probably use IndexedDB, as Expo SQLite is not supported on web, but we'll figure that out later. Today we are adding Expo-SQLite to our mobile app. First, please create a SQLite.ts service file with relevant functions we can import from other files when necessary. For context, here is the example code from Expo's official with SQLite demo app. So examples are super helpful if you can concisely tell ChatGPT, like, here's how it actually should work. It's got a context window of like, I think 4,000 tokens, so about around that number of characters. It says, sure, here is a SQLite.ts with relevant function. Now I still haven't given it the code from Nostr, but it kind of starts with like a little super basic service. Create table, add item, get items. This file exports 3 functions, blah, 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 blah. Now I say, here is event.java from a similar React Native app that uses SQLite. We will want to use their same table structure. Extend our SQLite.ts service file above with relevant code from here, converting from Java to TypeScript. And then I paste it in, I think I fit the entire file in there, let's see. Okay, and it got this about 80 to 90% correct. Here is the updated SQLite.ts file with relevant code from the provided Java file converted to TypeScript. Event data, there's the event class, the constructor. There's a couple things that it kind of bullshitted, like React Native does not have JSON object, JSON array. That's okay. But the bulk of this code is correct. Sometimes it cuts off. Sometimes you can say continue and it'll continue from where you left off. Other times it'll like spit it all back out. You just got to kind of try a few different variations. If sometimes see it cut off get reply event ID, this time I said just give me the get reply event ID method. So it gives me this. Give me these different methods. Then I said JSON array and JSON object are not valid exports of React Native and are not found in JavaScript. Redo filter tags without it. So just through conversation, and you can see this is like a long conversation, but I'm like just kind of working with it to massage this class. And so what might have taken me, I don't know, 6 hours or 10 hours to convert this Java file to TypeScript, I did in probably about an hour or so, maybe 2. And so by the end of this, I was able to get this whole flow working. I had to extend that class, and then I had to also add, see for example, that class saves it to different table structures based on that are relevant to the different channel types. So there was no support for kind 40 and 42 for channel creation and channel messages. So I guided it to extend it like this, and then it was able to write the methods for those. And so after about 2 hours of this, I was able to get it working such that all chat messages would persist from, not the chat, I guess, demoed it on channels, and then I gotta then do messages. But the point is that this thing that I've had in previous apps that I've worked on, where I've wrestled with like, how do we refactor message storing to be more efficient, stuff that's previously taken days or weeks can now just take hours. And that's in part because Expo gets you a lot of like tooling that already works really well together, and then to be able to have like a second brain come in here and just kind of take the prompts that you give and spit you out code that works pretty well. It's a massive time saver. Okay, any questions, comments about this before we get into basic app setup? Does anyone else use ChatGPT in their workflow? I'm curious how do you use it?
Kind of like what you described earlier. It's like really helpful if you are moving to a new language. Then you can take code you understand and then ask it to just rewrite it in another language, and that's super useful.
Anyone else?
I use it just if I need to like get some data from an API, I just say, how do you get this with React Query? And
It spits it out good.
Yeah, sometimes if I get an exception or something that I can't find within a stack overflow, I'll just see what it gives me. It's also good for like crafting emails for like just talking with the company and see what's not.
Yeah, it's great at both debugging and spitting out friendly boilerplate bullshit. All right, so we're gonna do this from scratch, just so people kind of see the full flow. But I just put a repo up on github.com/arcadelabs inc. If you want to just start with an Expo app that has all the shims kind of ready, you can pull this down, and I put kind of an explanation of each of these things. I'm going to step through this actually from scratch so people can kind of see how to create an Expo app from scratch and just kind of like what the different things are that we can learn from this. But this is an app that you can pull down and connect on your phone, and it'll log a public-private key created from Nostr tools. Okay, so let's go through this from the beginning. We're gonna just kind of pretend that we're like super new to Expo. If you are on your laptop, I invite you to follow along on the Expo website, which is the docs site, which is docs.expo.dev. On the left sidebar, under Setup, this will have some things that you'll need. I'm not going to really step through this. Basically, if you have Git and Node on your system, then you're good, probably. It's worked for me with both Node versions 14 and 16. But there you can kind of go through that, and if you need help with that, then just copy paste it into ChatGPT and ask it questions. All right, we're going to start with create a new app. It says before creating a new app, make sure that Expo CLI is working on your development machine. And then my recommendation, even if you're not going to be coding, I recommend that you install the Expo Go app on your phone because that will let you, when we get a QR code up here, you'll be able to scan the QR code with your phone and get the apps running on your device. I'm going to do that for the introductory app that we're going to build in a second here. And then later I will also do that for the Arc chat app that I've been working on, which should, fingers crossed, work for both Android and iOS. We should all be able to chat with each other. And if we have time, I'd like to kind of step through the process of making a PR and making some kind of change to that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to step through this, and when you create a new app, you'll kind of go through this same flow. And so let's do it together. One thing that they do mention here. It says you can also use the -- template option with the create Expo app command, blah, 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 to see the list of available templates. I am going to do that here. For the starter repo that I put up here, I did not use a template. So this is just like vanilla JavaScript using NPM. I tend to always use TypeScript with Yarn. So I am going to do template. And we'll take a look at what templates are available. So I'm going to do npx. And for those who don't know, npx, if you get an error that npx is not found, npx, I'm pretty sure, just comes with the default like npm package. So you might need to set up node or npm on your system. You can follow the instructions in the Expo docs for that. But npx is basically, it fetches a remote script that the Expo team maintains called create Expo app, and it'll set up whatever's necessary on your system. It'll prompt you for like, do you want to install create Expo app? I don't think it'll prompt me because I think I already did it. So if I do npx space create -expo -app --template, it'll give us 4 options. One is blank, a minimal app as clean as an empty canvas. That's what I used for the Nostr Expo starter. Blank TypeScript, a blank app with TypeScript enabled. Navigation, TypeScript, several example screens and tabs using React navigation and TypeScript. And blank bare, a blank app with the native code exposed. There's like 2 different modes in Expo. There's managed, where they manage all the native app packaging and stuff for you. Bare is something that you can do later, but definitely start with the managed workflow. I'm going to do navigation TypeScript because this will give us some nice navigation boilerplate and screens, because I want to try to get as much of like a demo app working. All right, let's call this pleb chat. All right, so they'll kind of step through this and make, let's see. This will take maybe a minute or so. Any questions while this is going? So one thing I'll say is that it used to be way harder to get Nostr working well in a React Native environment because much of the tooling, like Nostr tools, uses these crypto libraries that was sort of envisioned to be working on the web. And sometimes in a native environment, there's different things that you cannot expect that are present in a web environment. One of the main cryptography libraries used by Nostr tools, which is the main JavaScript library, or one of the main ones for interacting easily with Nostr, written by Fiat Joff, who's also the founder of Nostr. It relies on this Noble library for SecP256 doing encrypted elliptic curve cryptography on the curve similar to Bitcoin that Nostr uses for its key-based authentication. It never worked on mobile because the way that this library was implemented required this thing called native big int. It's just like a particular type of integer that it expected the device to have. Android never had it until recently. A new version of React Native came out. Noble updated the library specifically to work with this. As a result, all these like kind of previous other hacky libraries I had to use can be completely replaced. It requires in Expo changing the default JavaScript compiler engine from the basic JSC to Hermes. You don't have to know so much about this, but just as an example of like this hard stuff that I've figured out is now reflected in that starter. So you hopefully don't have to like, I mean, if you like pain, feel free to go through and like look through the different crypto libraries. But the good news is that it's as simple as through doing these few steps. Well, I tell you the steps that I took, but if you just start with this app, this should work both for Android and iOS. There's some additional kind of weird transpilation thing that's needed to get something working on web in the Expo environment. I don't use the Expo environment for web in my web app. I use Tamagui, uses Next.js under the hood. So basically, I don't. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But so this will not work right now on web. It should work on both Android and iOS. All right, let's check on our code and see here. All right, this I assumed this would use Yarn. It did not. That's okay. All right, so let's read what this says. So what did it do? Downloaded and extracted project files. Installed JavaScript dependencies. Your project is ready. To run your project, navigate to the directory and run one of the following npm commands. All right, so let's go into cd plebchat. And I've got an iOS device, so I'm going to do, first I'm going to open up in my editor. And I'm going to do npm run iOS, but I'm pretty sure the QR code will work on both devices. So let's try. I'm actually going to run this from my editor console. And you'll note that this folder structure here has a bunch of other stuff that the basic one didn't have. Navigation set up and using color scheme and stuff can be good to help you get started. All right, let's try it. npm, oops. And whenever you open up a package, an app like this, you can always kind of look at the, if you're not sure what to do when you open up a new repo, if you go into package.json, you look at the scripts, you can see pretty clearly start is the main thing, and then if you're calling npm run iOS, it's just calling Expo start with an iOS flag. All right, this is running my previous demo in another window. Let's use a different port, sure. All right, this uses something called a Metro bundler. You don't have to care so much about that, but that's just like the kind of like the React Native version of Webpack. Okay, so here's the options that I have. Did I run start? Oh, I ran start instead of iOS. So this is kind of like the generic start screen. Here's my options. Press A to open Android. This will try to open the app in an Android emulator. The iOS simulator, it'll open kind of usually by itself, assuming you have one installed via Xcode, which is kind of a pain in the butt. basically, if you have an emulator connected or open, it'll try to open it up in an emulator. If you have a device connected, like a USB, your phone's connected to your computer, then it'll try to open it on device. Any questions? So let's see if this works. So for me, it says open in Expo Go. It might, if you don't have Expo Go, it might pop up in a browser. I'm actually not sure what the behavior is.
Yeah, I'm getting, looks like it's
Yeah, if you got the thing on the bottom that says new update available, yeah, because I can see one of these progress bars is for you, one of them is for me.
should I turn it off?
No, it's good. Hopefully we don't nuke the Wi-Fi here. And I think you will need to be on the Wi-Fi in order for it to do the over-there update to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is bundling up all of the JavaScript of the app. And it's kind of going to send it over the air to your phone, which because you're using Expo Go, it can tell that you've got it kind of running on your, that's why it has to be on the same Wi-Fi network. Sometimes you'll get this like could not connect to development server. That's because it's still bundling. And so in the second, once I see this get a little further, then I will hit reload. So while that goes, let's take a little tour of what code we got from the starter template. All right, so the entry file is app.tsx. And get my colors here. My laptop's pretty laggy. So the root level app file is the first thing that runs. We've got a hook here that basically loads fonts. There might be some other, let's see, cache resources. What does this do? Yeah, sets up the splash screen. Just basic stuff. You have fonts. You can add fonts to this. Just proper flow of data initialization. Once the loading is complete, it'll show the navigation. All right, looks like it bundled for 3 different people. Let's see what, I'm gonna hit reload. Hey, try again. Okay, so I've got it on my phone here. Sometimes if it says could not connect, just hit retry. I've never seen 6 people connect. That's pretty cool. Okay, so you may or may not be able to see this, but I've got a basic screen with it's automatically in dark mode because that's my default. If you don't have that, that's another nice thing that Expo gives you. So I've got 2 tabs. I've got tab 1 and tab 2, and the tab 1 has a button in the top right that opens a demo modal. You can drag down. And the explanation, it says, open up the code for this screen, screen/tab1 screen.tsx. Change any of the text, save the file, and your app will automatically update. So let's just make sure that works first. And on tab 1 screen, let's call this pleb chat. And I'm going to delete that line. Now, does anyone else have their app open? Did it automatically refresh? Cool. What do I want to put on your phones?
That's kind of cool.
OK. Setting this up without Expo is just don't try it. All right, so let's get Nostr going. I want to get a stream of events in here, and while I step through this, start thinking about what cool, amazing, innovative chat features we're going to put in our new app here. OK, so let's just kind of go down these instructions and make sure that I wrote them correctly. So we created the app. I'm actually going to, I'll run this. I'm not going to do the polyfill yet because I want to actually get to the error so we can kind of see. So let's just imagine that I have no idea how to integrate Nostr, but I heard that this Nostr tools library from Fiat Joff is an easy way of, yeah, there it is on GitHub. Tools for developing Nostr clients. And if I look down here, it says, OK, only depends on these 2 crypto packages. Here's how you generate a key, sign, verify events, interact with the relay. All the basics for interacting with Nostr are all here. So let's give that a try. I'm going to install Nostr tools, and just because I'll do it now, so I don't have to do it later. But I'll show you the error. Text encoding polyfill. All right, so and if you're not familiar with NPM, NPM stands for Node Package Manager. Basically, when you're developing a JavaScript-based app, whether it's React or Vue or vanilla or all sorts of different ones, you have access to the same kind of universe of JavaScript-based packages that you can pull any of these in. All right, so that was installed. Now let's give this a try. I want to try this demo here, generating a private key and a public key. This will be a good first test to make sure that our libraries are all working. To start, instead of, eventually we'll put like a little login button. I'm just going to have this automatically run on start. I'm going to pull in use effect, and then we'll pull in generate private key and generate public key from Nostr tools, and let's see what happens. Now, sometimes hooks kind of work weirdly with, okay, do you all have a red screen that says cannot find variable text decoder? Cool. Something that this library expects you to have but isn't by default. There's like certain like node libraries that are in the browser that React Native does not by default have. And then there's all sorts of other JavaScript libraries where people have shimmed this to work with React Native. So now I already installed it here, but if you have not, do npm i -- save text encoding polyfill. And I'm going to go put that at the top of my screen. And actually, I'm not going to put it in tab 1 screen because I want it to run on every page. So I'm going to go back to app.tsx. And at the very first line, I'm going to do import text encoding polyfill. And let's see if that helps. I'm going to, let me see. I'm going to, just to make sure that we've got the latest stuff, I'm going to like shake my device and hit reload. OK, cool. All right, I'm at the next error. So a lot of coding is just going from one error to the next error. But we got past that error. And now we're on this error that says random bytes is not a function. And it gives you a little snippet of the code in there. And I think if you tap on if you have it open in your editor, and it might only do this on my screen, but if you tap the call stack, it'll pop open where in the code the error is. But if you read here, it says inside the code block it says else if crypto.node const random bytes is crypto.node, and then use that. So basically, it's looking for this like node crypto library that just doesn't exist on React Native. And this is probably like one of the most important parts of cryptographic libraries is secure randomness. And the question is, whatever device that you're on, what is the source of secure randomness? If you're building an Expo app, thankfully you don't need to do anything about that yourself. You just go to adapt the existing Expo package for secure randomness. It says, this is on, again, the docs.expo.dev site. Expo Random provides a native interface for creating strong random bytes. With random, you can create values equivalent to node.js core crypto.randombytes API, which is exactly what the app currently is trying to call. Also works with blah, blah, blah. Platform compatibility, device and emulator for Android and iOS and web. Cool. OK, so all we need to do is install this. And you can see that was one of the that's actually the next step in the recreation there. So I'm going to go back into the editor. I'm going to run that in a new tab. Generally, when you install Expo packages, these are also NPM packages. But installing them through this npx expo install, it does some additional checks to make sure things are like will work well with the rest of your Expo packages. So yeah, it says installing one SDK 47, which is the Expo SDK version we're using. Compatible native module using npm install. Whenever you install Expo packages, things might get wonky, and we might need to like reload the app, or sometimes you need to like, if something gets messed up, sometimes you need to like cancel the packager and then reboot it. We'll step through it and see. All right, so we installed Expo random, but that's not going to be enough to have the rest of this work. And so because we need to have the noble secp library actually use this source of randomness. And this is something always you have to be super careful about whenever anyone patches a library. And that's why I put all sorts of warnings that anything using this is super alpha quality, because it's a really dangerous thing to be editing cryptographic libraries. However, this is a pretty simple swap out of the node random library for the Expo random library. And whereas in the past I would have 5 different patch files, we only need to do 1. So this is the standard for patching native NPM packages, which if you were to just go in, for example, and note that we're going to be doing a patch for noble secp. We don't have noble secp specified anywhere in here. It's a dependency of Nostr tools. And so because Nostr tools relies on it, when we run npm I, it'll go through and it'll install all of the dependencies of that package. And so you can see noble secp lib ESM index.json, and we might even be able to pull up the exact. Anyway, somewhere in here, you can see it does all this big int stuff. This was what required all the Android stuff that it didn't work with, that now it does. And then somewhere in here is that one line. One thing we do need to make sure is that this is the right version, because a patch applies to a specific version, and ordinarily I would have a resolutions field in package.json to make sure everything stays at 170. We can worry about that later. All right, so what I'm going to do is the easiest thing to do is to clone this down and just copy the file over, so I don't have to. I guess I could just, let's do this. All right, so inside pleb chat, let's just do it the hard way. I'm going to make a folder called patches. When we run our patch package script later, it's going to look in the patches directory, and I'm going to paste in the name of the patch, just copy pasting from the GitHub. And this is just a particular syntax of looking at that particular line, removing some, and adding others. And you can see what we're doing here is for some reason the crypto.node. Oh, no, we're actually removing that flag. So we're just saying if we're not on the web, if we don't have access to the web-based crypto object, the assumption is that we're on native. In that case, and we'll do it in a try-catch block, we're going to look for this package called expo.-random. We're going to use its get random bytes byte generation function and just use that. And if we don't have it for some reason or we can't use it, it'll throw an error. All right. So let's copy this. And when you copy from GitHub, I like to go into raw, copy, paste. Yeah, that should do it. OK, now the last thing I need to do, let's see if I documented it correctly, is run the patch. Now you can run the patch manually by running this npx space patch dash package. But if you add it into your package.json as a script called post install, then anytime you run npm I or yarn, it'll run this afterwards. So first, let's just run it manually, make sure it works. Let's do npx patch package. OK, so yeah, it kind of compared its version. Oh, wow, and my app just automatically kind of came back up. So it applied this patch. Now let's see. Let's just also make sure if I run npm I think it'll make sure everything's correct, and then it'll also apply the patch. Let's just make sure it does that. Yep, there it is, post install, npx patch package. And it worked. OK, let's go back and now are we, how do we know if this works? Are we logging it or what are we doing here? Let's go back to tab 1 screen. And right now we're not doing anything with it. Let's throw an alert. Let's alert our public key. Anyone else have an alert on their screen with your public key? Anyone still have this open?
Yeah, it's loaded right now.
And I think if I reload it, I should get a different one. Yep.
Yeah, there.
Awesome. Okay, so we are now caught up with the Nostr-Expo-starter. And we're generating a public-private key. Once you've got that piece done, that's really just the hardest part of talking with Nostr, is that kind of the key gen stuff. And so now let's connect to a relay and see what happens. So the next thing I would do in this situation is just continue kind of going down the API of Nostr tools, and let's do this next section here that says creating, signing, and verifying events. Let's see what this does. This defines an event. It says hello, signs the event, verifies it, and then we throw it at a relay. So let's do both of these things, and then start building out the user interface. So let's see. For testing this, let's all just throw it into tab 1 screen for now. I'll remove the alert, hide the terminal. All right, let's see what this does. We need to harmonize this. Actually, this is kind of duplicative, actually. Oops, and this is the public key. We already called get public key up here, so that's fine. All right, now, so event, that looks good. That's our basic note event to just say hello. There's the timestamp. Don't need tags. The pub key, we're saying that it's coming from us, from this pub key that we just generated. I'm going to set this to be kind any, so we just squelch that error for now. OK, so now let's see if I can just do a import suggestion here. Yep, this wants to import get event hash from Nostr tools. I'm going to import that. And you can also copy paste this from the GitHub. You can just, let's actually just do that. But it's nice to be able to have the imports kind of generate automatically. Let's see, I'll throw that there, and then I'll put generate private key. Oops, not generate private key. We got that, we got that. I guess that's all of it. Am I missing something? Yeah, generate private key. All right, so I think that's all that we need from Nostr tools. All right, this is looking for private key. Let's rename this here. All right, so before we send the event to the relay, oh, look at this. Here's some more AI helper. GitHub Copilot suggests that I create an alert here that says, event is valid, showing whether or not it's valid or not, and if the signature is valid. Let's do it. Thank you, Copilot. OK. If you're still with me, you should have an alert that says event is valid, true, and signature is valid, true. This is another kind of hard pain in the ass thing to figure out how to sign events properly. It's all done. This event is now signed. It's verified. We are ready to throw this event at a relay, and it will be persisted for as long as that relay is around and wants to save this event. OK, so we're done with that section. That took us like 60 seconds. Very nice. OK. Interacting with the relay. This is a little bit more involved. Let's see. What are we missing from Nostr tools? Relay init. And for now, we're just going to stuff this all on the same hook, which is not the best thing to do, but let's do it anyway. Oh, so in this, it's going to want us to do an await async, which we cannot do in a bare hook. So we actually are going to extract this into a different function. We'll call this connect to relay. Defines a const. So we're going to move the relay connection code. Let's comment out this alert for now. Move that up there. And then we will call that function, connect to relay from the use effect. And when we get this core flow working, we'll step over to Arc, and I'll show you how I do it in that app with kind of like proper state management and stuff. Let's import relay init. If you don't have that kind of type import setup, you can just add relay init to the imports of Nostr tools. Let's see, what do we do next? So here we're setting up 2 WebSocket listeners. One for when the relay connects. We're going to console log connected. And let's actually change this to an alert, because console logs are only going to show on my screen, but I want them to show on your screen. Oops. Alert.alert. All right, and then what's a good relay that we could use? Yeah, I could use the Zebedee one. Let me try to remember. So for the exact syntax, anyone remember the URL of the thing that shows all the active Nostr relays?
That was, yeah, it's like FRST or something. Weird.
All right, let's try one of these. Let's see if the Zebedee one's on here. Huh. Well, let's use Semisols, because he's a developer. This should be reliable, I think. Oops. Oh, that's annoying. It keeps refreshing, so I can't copy paste. OK, nostr.semisol.dev. Now I'm saving this, so something might happen. OK. If you're still with me, you should see an alert that says connected to WSS nostr.semisol.dev. So, hello, Semisol, you just got 3-ish connections from our workshop. Now you're going to get 3 messages. Let's see, where's my Nostr tools thingy? I don't need that, I don't need that. Yeah, go ahead.
So if you are only connected to one relay, you make a post, and later on you connect to other relays. Does that post you made on the other relay propagate to the other relay?
Not by default. An active topic of conversation in the Nostr Telegram channel is how people can or should have relays feed, like kind of take messages from each other for persistence or whatever. For now, it's the kind of thing where if you're a client that you want a message to be available on more than one relay, you can pull down messages from one and send it to another. What most clients do currently is they'll connect to like 6 relays. And I know at least the previous default behavior using like relay pool and stuff is it sends the same message to all of the relays. So for Arc, for example, right now, I connect to 2 of the major relays and one that I run myself. And I send every event to all 3 relays. So if one goes down, we still have all of them. How that will relate to different, the network topology as this scales and stuff will get, increasingly interesting. I hope that answers your question. OK, so we are connected to Semisol's relay. Let's do this. Let's query for an event that exists. I'm going to guess that this particular event is not on Semisol's relay. But let's see what happens. And I'm going to change the alerts, the console messages to alerts. So event fires when there's an event that it returns, and then EOSE means end of stored events, and that's another NIP that explains the circumstances that you get that. OK, so I got an alert that says EOSE, and I did not get the event. So this event that the demo is looking for is not on Semisols. So instead of doing this particular one, so then it steps through publishing, let's actually just see if we can do a different kind of subscription. And so now here's something where we're gonna kind of depart from this, and we'll come back to it. But what I want to do now is I want to find a bunch of different events, let's say, that are channel creations. And here's where you would go to the Nostr NIP1 spec, maybe the Nostr NIP28 spec and try to figure out like what the syntax of this subscription should be. But these days, I would go over to ChatGPT. Let's start a new conversation with ChatGPT, and we'll ask it to restructure this relay subscription call to get us what we want. So I'm thinking, let's start by grabbing a list of just the random notes. The kind of the main text content that people are sending is kind 1. I don't know if my laptop is slow or the browser is or what. So we're gonna do a new chat. And then we're going to paste in some of the code from Nostr NIP1. So let's pull open NIP1. All right, here we go. So now we're just going to kind of give this some context. We'll say I am using this code to subscribe to a Nostr relay. This looks for one event, but I want to change it to subscribe to kind 1 messages and fetch the last 25 messages. Modify my code based on the NIP1 spec I include below. Sometimes you don't have to, but I like to put my code in these little markdown code blocks. Now let's go see if we can paste in all of NIP1 or some of it. First, let's see if the entire thing fits. That would be nice. Okay, good. The entire NIP1 fits in context. So that means that you can very easily have it write code for you, help you understand it, whatever. This says, to modify the code to subscribe to kind 1 messages and fetch the last 25 messages, you can use the following code. Let sub is blah, 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 kinds 1 in an array, limit 25. This will subscribe to events of kind 1 and return the last 25 events that match this filter. The sub function sends a REQ message to the relay with the specified filters. Note that this will only fetch the last 25 events that match the filter and will not continue to send new events that match the filter as they are published. I don't know if that's correct. If you want to continue to receive new events as they are published, you will need to send a new rec message with the same filters periodically. I don't know if that's correct. But let's throw this copy into here and see if it works. And instead of, I don't know if I want to alert every single message. Let's actually do an alert with the last 3 messages. And let me change the alert to do event. I don't know if this is going to be JSON stringifiable or what. Let's try this. All right, you ready? Let's see if this does anything. All right, we got EOSE, and we've got, you should have hopefully 3 events, and you can see the, all right, so on mine, I see one message that has the content, I am not COVID vaccinated. Okay, we're on a Nostr relay. Let's see if we can see what the other ones are. Okay, so that's 1. 2 is content. They don't need to be the same. It is not used during verification. Your pub key just has to match the username in your NIP5 identifier. Username will be used for mentions. All right, so we're like eavesdropping on people's conversations in our little 20-minute app here. And now, we have the pub key of the user who sent that. And if we wanted to look up who that is, we could go do a subscribe to a kind 0 to get the user metadata for that. The problem is we don't know what relay that person's on, so we might have to connect to a bunch of different relays. And then the third one is content that says nope, and one of them, if they've got the there's a bunch of different tags for like E and P. That's all specified in the Nostr NIP1. But basically, like, it's a conversation between multiple people, and they're all kind of like tagging each other, so they all get the responses. We've got most of the like hard stuff figured out. Now the question is just like, what do we want to do with this data that comes in? All right, so let's just see if there's anything else relevant. Let's try sending a message. We might even be able to try to respond to one of these messages. All right, let's do this first. Instead of alerting these messages, let's get a feed of them showing on our screen here. So let's do this. In the same ChatGPT instance as previous, which it should remember or be able to consult NIP1 that we said, I'm going to say, here's my code so far. This alerts a few messages as they are received. Instead, I want to save each message in a local state variable called messages via useState, and then render the content in a flat list on this screen. Rewrite the code. Let's see what it does. To save each message in a local state variable called messages via useState, and then render the content in a flat list on this screen, you can modify the code as follows. It is. And then let's see how, sometimes it'll like change your libraries in a weird way, but it's usually sometimes 80 to 95% correct. So you can see here that it's added in the event subscription. It's calling set messages on the useState variable. That looks correct to me. Then it's setting up the flat list and some styles. This will connect to the relay, subscribe to events of kind 1, and fetch the last 25 events when the component is mounted. As new events are received, they will be added to the messages state variable. The flat list will then render the content of each message. Let's see if it actually works. I'm going to copy this. Actually, you know what I'm going to do before I paste that in? I'm going to commit all this. Initial event connection. Before we start, I'm going to publish branch. Oh yeah, I'm in a new repo. I'll publish this to GitHub afterwards. Before we start giving our code base over to the bots. Okay. So big advantage of TypeScript is that we get a whole bunch of, we can see kind of where the bot screwed up. So it did not import text. Okay, that's easy enough. We're importing text from React Native. What else? It'll probably complain about the types of the messages. I'm going to put an any here because I don't care about that right now. And prev messages. We should, I might want to disable, okay.
Wow, did you see it already?
I got some, on my screen, I got to make the color different because all I see is emojis because my text color is black. Let's do, make the color something that works on both of our screens. Let's do color blue. All right, I'm getting an encountered 2 children with the same key error. It's because we're not, I think it's because we're subscribing twice. Let me try this. Reload. Why is it not coloring the text? Color blue. Oh, there we go. Key extractor, item.id. Okay, so anyway, a little warning I gotta fix there. But the point is, we've got it now saying, yeah, nope, they don't need to be the same. It's not. There's the first thing. I am not COVID vaccinated. I will not be allowed in the USA, unfortunately. No, I just haven't implemented autocomplete yet. Just found a bug with copying user ID. So these are the, I guess you would call this kind of the global view of the semi-soul relay. This is just everyone that's sending kind ones. And then, if you're usually in an app, you'd be filtering by followers, followed and followers and stuff like that. But the point is that if you wanted to have an app that just showed the global view of all of the relays, you have the code for that now. Now the question is largely just one of UX. And then we'll do one last thing here before we pivot over to the Arc code base briefly, is let's send a message and see if we can get it to render on this screen. Where am I right now? Task queue, get out of there. All right. So let's go back to the Nostr tools. There is a NIP or there is a kind for event deletion. I think there's a NIP for it. Some clients do and do not support that. It's up to the clients to implement the NIPs. But the capability exists. Relays don't have to honor it.
But if they do honor it, do they actually delete that kind one object from whatever they're storing in it?
I don't remember, but let's take a look at what the NIP says the behavior should be. So NIP 9 is event deletion. A special event with kind 5, meaning deletion is defined as having a list of one or more E tags, each referencing an event the author is requesting to be deleted. Blah, blah, blah. Relays should delete or stop publishing any referenced events that have an identical pub key as the deletion request. Clients should hide or otherwise indicate a deletion status. Relays should continue to publish/share the deletion events indefinitely, as clients may already have the event that's intended to be deleted. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is all should. So some clients will, some clients and relays will, some won't. All right, so let's have ChatGPT again, and we might as well make a little chat bar here. Okay, so first of all, I want to kind of teach ChatGPT how to send a message. Let's close some of these other tabs via. Let's see. Well, we already taught it NIP 1, but now we need to give it kind of the Nostr tools. Let's see. Here we go. Well, we already created this signed event. Now we just need to publish it like this. I might not actually even need to have ChatGPT do anything because we already created and signed the event. Well, we'll use ChatGPT to when we actually want to hook it up to something custom. But for now, after this event subscription, let's just put this in here and the event, oops. Oh, that's right. ChatGPT overwrote all of that, the event stuff that we did earlier. So let's just copy paste this in here. All right, so we're defining a new event. Oh, now we don't have our pub key anymore. Let's go back up here and generate new ones. Not there. Let's put it up here. Let's import this and import this. Let's make sure that's all correct. This I don't care about. Import this. Import this. This can be any. All right, so let's save this. And I don't know what the behavior will be. Let's try reloading it. And let's see if I get any console messages about, is this an error? Failed to publish to Semisol. Let's see what the issue is here. All right, first of all, let's make sure that our event is valid. Kind one, pub key, created at, content, hello world, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much more time on this, but I'm going to just do a quick, I'm going to paste this into, let's just see if ChatGPT can help with this. There's probably just some like key formatting thing or something that's not correct, but let's do this. I am trying to use NIP1 to send a message to this relay. I can receive events fine, but not send. I get this error on console. And then I'll paste this. Sometimes, right now, the network is like super busy. Like the Damus relay is just completely not working at all because it's been so congested. And this is one of the more popular relays, so it might just be an issue with the like kind of network congestion. Oh, one potential issue is that you are closing the connection to the relay immediately after publishing the event, which may not allow enough time for the event to be processed by the relay. You can try removing the await relay. Yeah, why am I closing the relay? That's just because I was copy pasting from the Agile. There we go. Okay. So like my dumb little error that probably would have taken me like, I don't know, a while to debug, like ChatGPT just did it. Okay. Oh, here we got a new error. Failed to publish, blocked. Pub key is not allowed to publish to this relay. Nice. Thank you, Semisol. Let's go find a different relay. It says pub key is not allowed to publish to this relay. Well, it could be that we could be rate limited. If, for example, if I'm doing this and like 3 of our clients are all hitting the same one, there's some of these guys have rate limiting. So if there's too many, like we need to find a relay that we can go spam. Where were we earlier? Nostr.info. Let's find maybe a less popular relay. No. Relays here. And let's just make sure this works. Then we'll go check out Arc. Let's try nostr.oxter.dev. Now we probably won't get all the chat messages here, but let's save that for later. All right, I'm going to reload this. Let's see if this works. Event. Hello world. Okay, I now have an event that shows up. I'm still getting some weird error there, but oh, there we go. Oh yeah, sometimes it just kind of gets overwhelmed with all the messages. So I see 2 hello worlds on there. So there's the message that I sent and the message that Carr sent is at the top of the feed. So message sending works. We got some, what's this error we got here? Encountered 2 children with the same key. Yeah, there's just some like better key management to be done there. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. Writing to relay works. I'm gonna throw this up on GitHub real quick. And so anyone who wants to, turn this into more of an app, this is like the basics of using Nostr tools in like some horrible code, but it does work. So let's call this pleb chat workshop code demo public, and then I will we'll do a 10-minute tour of the Arc code base, and I want to announce some bounties, and then we'll wrap up. So we'll go over to here. No. Why did it make it in that repo? Okay, so that code is up at github/arcadelabsinc/plebchat. You can play with that at your leisure. I'm going to close that. So that's just kind of like with like quick horrible code. We got a more or less basically functioning mobile app working with Nostr relays. So a little some of the thinking around this was Enigma was cool because it was like it showed the power of NIP28 as sort of being able to provide a Nostr-based clone of Telegram, which is cool to demonstrate the power of Nostr to do things more than just what it was initially envisioned to do, which is to be a kind of a decentralized, broadcast-focused social media Twitter replacement thing. And people happily used Enigma for a while, to the point that there's a bunch of people that are chatting in these channels, which is really cool for, as I'm now coming back to client development, and I'm building apps where there's already a whole bunch of data in these channels, so I don't need to populate the things with fake data. Here's a Nostr CN chat where people are talking. You see it talking about Blue Wallet and Moon. I heard from William that there's a whole bunch of people using Damus, like Chinese. He thought they were dissidents or something like that. But there's a number of Chinese language. There's a number of Spanish languages ones. So I'm building this in public. Everything's open source. The idea and one of the advantages to building in React Native is that you can, with a single code base, target Android, iOS, and web simultaneously. That's been one kind of limiting factor right now. Damus, which is the leading Nostr client currently, is only in iOS. Williams talked about wanting to do an Android client, but I think that they're just super busy adding features to Damus. And he requested in this recent podcast that he was on, like, he was kind of putting the call out for someone to get an Android client to feature parity with Damus. So even though I intend for this to focus on chat and be kind of a Telegram clone, we are going to be spending the next week to try to get this as close as possible to feature parity with Damus, using some of the like ChatGPT powered development you saw earlier. So I'll be tweeting all of this out. But you can see right now, if you go, and I say this is all sort of like alpha quality and stuff, but I've got this deployed currently to the web. And you're welcome to try this. It's not super optimized on your phone, but it should work on your phone basically, or you can go in your browser, alpha.thearcapp.com. And it's also, you can go follow us on Twitter and click the links and stuff, twitter.com/thearcapp. But this is I just kind of modeled the sign up flow here on Damus, create account or log in. I gotta fix some of this formatting, but log in. Please do not use your like actual keys generated from other apps. But if we generate, let's try this. Pleb chatter, display name, hello, Chris, creator, arc. What's that? That is on the feature list to log in soon. There's no reason why we can't quickly add it. I think that's. Yeah, there's a, let's see, I have it here somewhere. Yeah, log in via web extension, NIP7. It's on our roadmap to add, but the advantage of that is letting people not need to share their private key. You just use Albi. Let's see, where was I? Okay, so yeah, so this works. Kind of a super basic Telegram style web kind of interface inspiration thing. But these channels, most of them have messages in them already. This is not like efficient, like some of the caching stuff doesn't really work well on web, so sometimes it'll like lag while it loads stuff. But this is the main Nostr channel, so like on the Enigma, for example, the main channel everyone joins is Nostr. Say hello from PlebLab. And I don't even think it like auto scrolls down. But so anyway, this is super basic. I mean, I just built this all like in the last week pretty much. But it's just cool that you see all these channels here. There's already like a ton of people chatting. Damus has kind of partial support for NIP28. Like they render messages as kind of their standard feed things. They don't let you create channels. I mean, you can't create a channel here yet, but the people that have created channels here are doing it via the Enigma client or Nostr console, probably. I think those are the main two clients that use NIP28, but the idea is to turn this into something that's like a full-fledged chat app, but one that can also use the kind of feed style stuff from Damus. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the Arc repo. So one thing to note here is I actually did not use the Create Expo app. We are using Expo, but I'm using this framework called Tamagui. So we're using React Native, Expo, and Tamagui. Write less runs faster. Styles, optimizing compiler, and UI kit that unify React Native and web. One of the differences here is that the Expo kind of out-of-the-box connection for web uses like Webpack and like not super sophisticated web-based components, whereas Tamagui, which is based on this other framework called Solido, the web part is powered by Next.js, and they've got like these routing wrappers and things that kind of harmonize the navigation between them. Next.js is just one of the best web frameworks for React that works in production really well and all sorts of optimizations and stuff. And so when I started the app with npm create Tamagui, and if you want to kind of, you can go through, I make a point to kind of really clearly explain all of the pull requests, the different functionality, but if you can go back and look and see. I did start this with Create Expo app, and then I later on converted it to Tamagui here. But you can go through and see kind of the stuff that I've added, a feed of Nostr kind1 messages, add the crypto shims. It took me a while to kind of swap that out with the more latest way of doing things. I'll do a quick tour of this for 3 minutes, and then I want to announce some bounties, and then we'll wrap up here. So I've already cloned this. So you've got a couple options for app development. You've got the kind of build from scratch, which I've shown you how to do. That's one way of doing things. Because so much in the Nostr community is open source, if there's something that you want, if it's completely new and different, you still might be better off kind of forking or harvesting code from some of the existing open source projects. Like don't worry, like don't feel scared to leverage the work that's out there. Take all of the code here if you want to. You can fork this, rename it, add whatever functionality you want. But my hope is that we get a number of developers starting to work on each other's project. So if you have an interest, for example, in helping build kind of Nostr-based chat, or otherwise doing sort of Expo-based Nostr development, I would invite you to contribute to the Arc code base. And over time, I'll get this kind of better fleshed out with different like issues and things like that. Later today, I'm going to add to this README details of 3 bounties. Basically, I'm going to be giving 1 million sats to up to 3 people who write their first PR that adds some kind of substantive functionality or some kind of substantive improvement to the Arc code base. I've got a kind of a long feature list here. I've been recently working on improving the kind of message fetching algorithms, and then starting to add these kind of Twitter-style profiles, same that Damus has, and kind of building out some of that functionality. I'm going to add the NIP5 identifiers right next to the name, like Damus has. Contact list, follower following feed. A lot of this stuff I'm able to do relatively rapidly, kind of taking some of the code, for example, from Damus is written in Swift because it's an iOS app, but using the same process you saw earlier of pulling that into ChatGPT, you can do some of this stuff rather rapidly. But if you say, you know, okay, I want to make it easy and build some convenience functions to have any npub be clickable. If you were to do a PR that has that and kind of solves that for the app as a whole, you know, would throw 1 million stats to you for that. Reactions, anything that kind of substantially adds to any of these features, probably not the ones towards the end, but kind of in the middle is what we're working towards. Let's just do a super quick spin through the code base and just kind of take a look at why it's a little bit, what's different about it than the Expo thing that we started with earlier. So this is called a mono repo, and this is from the Tamagui setup. If you do on the Tamagui site, the kind of npm create Tamagui, which is their equivalent of npx create Expo app, it'll set you up with this structure, and they document pretty well what it is. But so we've got our patches, you know, the important folder, still at the root level. We've got packages. Most of the app code goes into packages /app. UI has certain kind of UI components that are shared, as well as, and then some of the like Expo specific code is in Expo. Next specific code is in Next with different pages. In here, there's like a layout file for, like, if you notice the kind of sidebar view on the web is different than the mobile app, and so that's got its own kind of Next.js component. But the core logic of the channels and the connection code to Nostr, all of that is in the packages /app directory. So this is basically the app code that's shared between platforms. So the bulk of the stuff goes in here. There's a features directory which has chat. And so, for example, I'm building this in using hooks and using Zustand for store, one of the like super lightweight state management libraries that works really well with React. So earlier when we were doing the demo, we were using useState for React, which is fine for kind of demo purposes, but I like to use Zustand. And there's things that are kind of like pain in the ass, but I was able to have ChatGPT help do things like adapting some of the Nostr relay connection code into a hook that will, you know, loop through the relays and you know, set up and tear down subscriptions. All of this can be improved, but it is kind of like working for now, and would invite anyone to like learn from this / you know, feel free to criticize it or whatever. And you could probably do things like go to ChatGPT and be like, let's actually just try this. Let me go back to the where were we with the? I'm gonna go back to the Nostr chat that we had, so it's got some memory of NIP1. The memory of ChatGPT is like specific to the different conversations. I'm gonna see if ChatGPT has any quick criticisms of my code here. Let's see. Tell me what is good and bad about this use Nostr hook and how I can improve it. Oh yeah, there it is. No, I pasted in the wrong thing. What the hell? So now it's just bullshitting because I said use Nostr. I didn't even paste in the code. So now it's just like that doesn't make any sense. Let's actually paste it in. Oh, I pasted in the tab 1 code. Stupid. Get out of here. There's Nostros. Get out of there. All right. One of the downsides of ChatGPT is you have to like wait for it to finish typing before you. Okay. I pasted the wrong code. Analyze this instead. The use Nostr hook appears to handle connecting to Nostr relays, subscribing to initial subscriptions, and handling received events. It uses the relay init function from Nostr tools to create a new relay instance and then connects to the relay using the connect method. It also sets up event listeners for the connect and error events and subscribes to initial subscriptions specified in initial subscriptions using the sub method. When an event, blah, blah, blah. One potential issue with this code is that the relays and relay action stores are not being provided as dependencies to the use effect hook. This means that the effect will not be rerun if the values in those stores change, blah, 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 unexpected behavior. Being called every time the component renders. So yeah, the code that I have in there is like MVP quality, and to be able to kind of like pass code and get pretty savvy recommendations from ChatGPT is freaking awesome. Okay, I'll wrap up here. I invite you all to please join, if you are not already in it, join the Nostr Telegram group. That's where a lot of conversation about this goes. You can ask any questions that you have in there. Please follow Arc on Twitter /me, and any other questions that you want to direct to me. I'm at Arcade City Mayor on Twitter. And please build on Nostr, and if you have any blockers to doing it, hit us up and we'll get you unblocked, and let's do it. Thank you, guys.